Hello again. Stance, very important. Posture, very important. Position, very important. But as important, and you could even argue more important, is how you transition from one position to another. Because if you ever get into a fight, whether for self-defense or because you want to be a ring fighter, you're never going to be static. You're going to be constantly moving. So it's all very well having perfect positions, but if you don't have perfect transitions between those positions, you won't achieve what you want to achieve. So today I'm going to take a look at some of the key transitions in the opening sequence and in Sanjan, focusing on stance and posture, but not on the hands. So a simple example from the opening sequence of our forms in Wuzuquan is going from this position, take a snapshot there, to this position. Let's take a snapshot there. Now you could have those two snapshots and think, well, that person's doing it perfectly. But if that person is doing it like this, it's not perfect. Because that movement isn't about throwing up a shield. It's here to break someone's grip. That's one technique and one application. And then you're blocking a hook punch and damaging the incoming weapon. You're blocking and striking. So if you're not doing this correctly, you can't apply it correctly. Watch the legs. If I allow my other knee to wobble like that, I'm losing stability. So even though I might end up in the right position, if I've gone that way first and come back, I've lost stability in the meantime. Not good. The first transition beginners learn is to simply go from this neutral position to standing with the feet together. And you do that by shifting your weight onto your left leg, keeping your shoulders and hips in line. And then you bring the foot in. Common mistake. Leaning to counterbalance and then moving across. No. Head stays above the center line. No tilting of the head. No tilting of the shoulders away from the hip line. Head centered, shoulders over hips. The next transition is to step from here out into a high horse stance. And we normally teach beginners this, and they turn it in. And this is to ensure that they use the waist. I step straight out into horse, and I use the waist anyway. Notice I start to sink here. And I take the weight off the leg that's going to move. Shoulders remain above the hips. Head remains centered. Step out. Everything here is supporting me. And then I drift the weight across. Common mistake, leaning to counterbalance. I've seen some people step out twice rather than once. What do I mean? Half step, half step. It's not how I do it, it's not how I was taught to do it, but you end up in more or less the same position, slightly different location. However, same principle. If you're going to take a half step to the right, you've still got to allow the weight to be borne by the left. Let's say there's your half step. Then you drift your weight across so that it's now being carried by the right, and there's your second half step. However, I have seen some people doing it like this. No. Head above center, shoulders above the hips, always. The next important transition is from your horse stance to a back stance. So we're going to go from here, we're going to step forward with the right into a back stance. So at the end of the opening sequence of Sanjan, for example, we draw this foot in slightly. So the weight starts to be borne by the right leg as we make that adjustment. And then the weight is borne by the left leg as we step forward. Notice again, no leaning from side to side. So the weight is borne by the left. When that lead foot plants, it's heel, then toe. And then the weight washes forward until you've got about 40% of the weight on the front leg. Right. So it's not toe, heel, and it's not dropping that 40% immediately. It's toe, and wash the weight forward. 40%, stop. So why heel toe? Because that allows your momentum to continue forward rather than driving it downwards. If you go toe heel, your momentum goes downward into the ground and you're effectively applying a brake to yourself. Whereas heel toe allows you to continue that momentum forward. Shift the weight to the right, move the left in, shift the weight to the left, circle forwards, and wash the weight forward. Notice this circular movement of the leg that moves forward. Why is that? One, it allows you to get inside your opponent's stance to disrupt his stance. So for example, I might get inside my opponent's stance, his knee is now here, and second possibility, if this leg is already forward, it's a sweep. And then in. So your opponent's lead leg is here, take it, and in. Third possibility, it's a kick, and in. The next transition is when you shuffle forward. You're already in a back stance, you shuffle forward into a back stance. So again, you have to smoothly shift your weight onto the back leg. No leaning, no cocking of the head. Lift the leg, go forward, heel toe, bring the other foot in, settle. What you must not do is allow your body to drift too far forward and then you have to recover it. Heel, toe. Not this. Another common mistake in this transition is to step too far. and now your stance is too long. You know you're in a correct back stance, because if you pivot 90 degrees, you're still in a correct back stance. You can see now my back stance is way too wide, because here it was too long. Still in back stance. Still in back stance. So the next transition is shuffling backwards, and here's the big mistake people make when moving backwards. Leaning forward so their upper body acts as a counterbalance, then they move the rear foot. No. Now you might think, well, I'm going to shift my weight onto my front leg so that my front leg is now bearing all of my weight, and then step. But no, not even that. What we're going to do instead is we're going to push off the front leg so that we never have to move forward. After all, the idea is to move backwards. We don't want to move forward just because we want to move backwards. So instead of shifting my weight forward, I'm simply going to give myself an impulse backwards off my front leg. Notice that when we move backwards, both legs move in a semicircle. There are two reasons for that. One is that if I just go straight back and my foot hits an obstacle, it can severely disrupt me. Whereas moving in a semicircle, dragging the toe, allows me a split second to sense that there's something there and not commit myself to settling back onto that. So if I get to there, I can stop my stance here, which might not be ideal, it might not be where I want to be, but it's better than being here. And when I teach class, I often slip obstacles in behind my students when they're in that sequence of Sanjan and they're moving backwards. I might put a gym bag or a kick pad behind them, just to catch them off guard. So this relatively narrow stance actually protects the groin, the inner thighs, prevent a foot from going straight up. But if we step that way, it exposes the groin again. So another benefit of circular stepping is that as you step, you're covering the groin. So I hope you found that useful. Just remember the key points. Watch the head, don't let it swing side to side or forwards and backwards. Keep the shoulders over the hips. Don't let this happen. Don't let this happen. And so long as your head's there, your shoulders are over your hips, you'll move nice and smoothly. Thanks for watching.